Today I'm going to be talking about open source software. First, I will be going over what is an open source software, then how does open source software work, the specific criteria that an open source software has to follow, the business uses and benefits of an open source software, then the downside of an open source software, positive aspects, and finally the conclusion. First off, what is an open source software? The term open source is in reference to something that people can modify and share because it is publicly accessible. So, open source software is software with source code that anyone can examine, modify, and enhance. The source code is behind the scenes of a software program that most users of softwares do not see. The code is where computer programmers can use it to change how a program or application works. By being able to change the code, you can fix a program that doesn't work properly or add new features. Open source projects include the principles of collaborative participation, open exchange, and transparent community-oriented development. When software is open source, it is typically available for all, which can help small businesses save money when compared to commercial software that can be pricier. Open source software doesn't actually focus on costs. It actually emphasizes the freedom that users get to enjoy with the software because they can do what they like. So how does open source software work? Open source software is all about the free availability of source code and distribution. Open source software enables developers and computer programmers to create their own software. This is something called proprietary software. There is something called proprietary software that is the opposite of an open source software, also known as closed source software. It has a license that restricts users from modifying the source code. For example, Microsoft Windows is a closed software. The general public license is commonly used for open source projects. The term of the general public license is that if anyone modifies an open source program and distributes a derivative work, they must also distribute the source code for their derivative work. Another license includes the BSD license that has fewer restrictions on developers. Under this license, with a program, you can put the program source code into another program and you do not have to release the changes publicly. Now I'm going to go over the specific criteria that an open source software has to follow. There are 10 of them. First, the license cannot restrict parties from selling or giving away the software as a part of a collection of software distributions having programs from several different sources. The license cannot require a royalty or other fee for a sale. The rationale behind this is that by requiring free redistribution, it eliminates the possibility for licensors to give up long-term gains to make short-term gains. It decreases the pressure for cooperators to default. Next, the program has to include source code and has to allow for distribution in the source code with a compiled form. The source code has to be in a form where a programmer would be able to modify the program. The rationale for this is because the purpose of open source is to make evolution easy. So therefore, the modification has to be made easy. Next, the license has to allow for modifications and derived works, and to be distributed in the same terms as the original software. This is for rapid evolution to happen because people need to be able to experiment with and redistribute modifications. Next, users have a right to know who is responsible for the software they are using. Also, authors have the right to know what they are being asked to support and protect their reputations. So, the license must permit distributions of the software built from a modified source code. The license could possibly require derived works to hold a different name or number from the original source. Next, any open source license cannot discriminate against any groups or persons. This is because if you have maximum diversity of persons and groups, there is also a maximum benefit for the process. Next, the licensed software cannot discriminate using a program in a specific field. For example, a program cannot be restricted to be used in a business or for biology research specifically. This is so there is no exclusion and to promote sources to being used commercially. For the distribution of license, the rights that are with the program has to apply to all that the program is redistributed in without the need for another license by those parties. This is so softwares can't close up by indirect means. Next, a license must not be specific to a product. This means that all parties that the program is redistributed in has to have the same rights as what the original software distribution has. There's two more left. A license cannot restrict other software. This is so distributors of an open source software can have the right to making their own decisions about their own software. Lastly, the license has to be technology neutral. This means that no provision of the license may be predicated on any individual technology or style of interface. This is because it prohibits the distribution of the program in media that cannot interpret acceptance by the user. This type of license limits the free transmission of the code. Now I'm going to go over how the open source software benefits businesses. People generally think that open source software are just boring and unimportant stuff that only developers and computer programmers care about. However, it has many benefits and applications for small businesses. The Free Software Foundation, which is a non-profit organization on a mission to advance software freedom worldwide, states that the focus of the free open source software movement is on the practical benefits of using open source software that appeal to more businesses. This results in there mostly always being a free open source alternative for every commercial software out there. For example, an open source alternative from Microsoft is Apache OpenOffice, or Open Document Foundation LibreOffice is an open source program similar to OpenOffice for computers. Another example is that businesses rely on QuickBooks for bookkeeping. The Intuit software helps businesses keep track of quotes, accounts payable, accounts receivable, invoicing, and more from an intuitive interface. QuickBooks can be pricey and start from around $100. However, TurboCash open source gives you the same software and capabilities for free. Mentioned in the previous presentation, cloud computing is also an increasingly important aspect with businesses that have internet-connected devices. OwnCloud and NextCloud are useful computing cloud computing applications that are open source softwares. Also, WordPress, a popular blogging platform, is an open source software and freely available to the public. Now I am going to go over the downsides of open source software. Even though there are many benefits of businesses using open source softwares, it is also good to pay attention to the downsides. First off, there is a lack of official support for open source softwares. With open source softwares, you have to do much of the work yourself. No one is getting paid for fixing your bugs, or providing you or your team with proper training, or responding to your questions and requirements. But if the software has a big and active community using the project, then you can possibly get the support if you need it. If not, then you can hire an expert dedicated to maintaining and improving software. Open source softwares are able to solve large problems really fast. However, sometimes not much attention is given to its graphical user interface. This results in making the software difficult to work with, especially for non-technical users. Non-technical companies will possibly have to use time to train their team to get them up to date for new releases of open source programs. Open source softwares are mainly available for free to the public. However, open source programmers can charge money for software support and services, not the software itself though. It is possible that you may need new hardware to use the software. Open source softwares could also require a lot of time and knowledge. This is especially true if you need to customize your software. You may need to modify it or some of it to meet your specific needs. This can require a lot of time and effort. With all that being said, now I will go over the positive aspects of using an open source software. One of the biggest advantages of open source softwares is that it can be installed for free. It can be used and deployed again and again on different machines without having to track the license, compliance, and terms of use. Open source programs are developed with the intention to be available to anyone. This really helps people that can't afford the commercial software. Open source softwares help to extend your hardware life because they are created to work with almost any type of platform. Open source softwares are generally developed by a group of talented and skillful experts. This makes the program highly reliable, and also they are high quality as well. Also, because anyone can modify the code and fix a bug, you can notice continuous improvements and new versions or features added to the software every now and then. Each program can be customized and tweaked by you, which is extremely helpful for companies because it can match the business's needs. Now for the conclusion. With all that being said, open source deserves more recognition. Using open source softwares saves people a lot of time and money. Open source softwares allows for a collaborative and sharing community for projects in a transparent manner. If you want to start using open source software systems, you can start by downloading the more popular softwares. This is because they will have a large community of support behind them, so you can get all the help that you need.